Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about how to land a cloud job in 2023 from scratch. This is exactly how I would do it. And it's probably going to be a longer video. I debated on how I could make this shorter, more YouTube algorithm friendly. But ultimately, there's a lot of information that I want to share that I probably just can't pack into a 5-10 minute video. So do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, share, all those good things. Leave a comment, please. And if not, it's just not going to do well, and it's not going to get shared to as many people who subscribe to this channel, because that's just how the algorithm works. But ultimately, I felt like I couldn't just make it really short because there's a lot here I want to share. But let's switch to the screen, and I can actually show you what I'm talking about. I was like mapping this all out earlier today. But depending on what scenario you're starting from, I think I've got you covered here. So if you have no experience, if you have some experience, if you have like you're already software dev trying to switch into cloud, if you're some kind of already in a technical role trying to switch into cloud, I've got you covered here too. If you've got nothing, you're starting from scratch, I've got you covered too. So let's get started. So I think the first big part here is understanding where you're at. So let's zoom in here. And for example, I started, and we can probably say here, like my help desk gig. This was my help desk gig. But before that, I was working retail. But that retail job, I was working at Apple Store, worked at the Genius Bar. So a lot of that I had like a ticketing system. I had a lot of experience with customers. I had a lot of experience with troubleshooting. So things like that really helped me build my case to go and land a help desk job, which puts me here in this prereqs area. And that was a support role, which is entry level for a lot of areas in tech. Like you can go support into software dev. You can go from support to cloud, support to DevOps, support to you name the cloud, the technical role that you want to get into. Support is a great entry level position to do it at. But if you're here and prior to you only have just a bunch of other type of experience, find ways that you can relate to that to get you here. So prereq land, we'll scroll down here. Probably you can get it done in a year, but this is pretty much your first door into tech. Like this is either your support role, but let's start from the top. Either you have a degree, which kind of completes this phase for you. You go through a boot camp, which would probably complete this phase to you, or you have related work experience, or you have a combination of this, what I call the self-taught framework, which includes certifications. I think this is a little here confusing, but we'll talk a little bit more about this too. But what can you do to get here? Well, obviously you can get a degree, you can attend a boot camp, or you can get a help desk role plus self-teach yourself, which in my opinion, this is the best route. Probably I'm biased because it's the route that I took, but why do I say it's the best route? Well, let's talk about the degree part first. You can have all the technical skill set in the world, but if you are in a country or region, or however you want to define that requires a degree, then you're going to have to get the degree. Like a lot of, tech influencers, or I guess public facing people, will just blatantly make statements like you don't need a degree to get into tech, but that ignores a lot of the nuances. As an example, I used to live in Ecuador, and in Ecuador, there's a lot of prestige, there's a lot of pride, there's a lot of pedigree towards having a degree. Parents put a lot of pride in being able to get their kids to go to school, have them see that through. And oftentimes, many entry-level roles will require a degree. So that's a country where you just have to have one. You have to have one. That's it. There's no conversation about yes or no. Potentially that's changing a lot more now, and that's the case in a lot of countries. But ultimately, saying yes or no, you need one, it just depends on so much more than if the job actually requires it. So, or the skill set requires it. Keep that in mind, okay? In terms of boot camps, I'm not a big fan of boot camps, but I can see it being useful for people who, for example, you're working in a career that gives you a certain amount of money, and you need to have that amount of money or more because you have a family or whatever financial responsibilities you have, and you can't go to like a help desk job that could potentially pay less or the same. So you doing a boot camp and projects and certifications on your side the time that you have on your side while keeping that job could be a good fit for you. The only downside to boot camps is, one, there's no real guarantee that it's going to land you a job. And two, it's just crazy expensive. I've seen boot camps out there for like $20,000, $30,000. And oftentimes I'll see boot camps not even just blatantly tell you how much they cost. Like, you have to go and you have to email them and you have to set up a call and they have to first convince you and then they tell you the price. Like, it's crazy the practices that they have around a lot of these boot camps, establishments, things like that. So there's that. That's why I personally think that the self-taught, so the get help desk role plus self-teach, which is what I did, but also you're not getting into any debt. You know, you're getting paid, you're gaining experience, and sometimes you can even shadow additional teams that, like, maybe you're working help desk, there's a cloud team, there's a DevOps team, and you can sort of finesse your way into getting some time each week to shadow them, like each week to hang out with them, just an hour, 2 hours a week, just to see what they're doing, not necessarily even do something. But maybe you can even build rapport and this team will help give you like low level tasks that you can get hands on with. But you won't get that experience or even that opportunity if you're not in that kind of role. And on the side, you're going to self-teach yourself. Now, that's sort of, you complete this phase. I pretty much think you can do this in a year. For me, it took me 1.5 years, but I knew, looking back at it, at a year or a little bit before a year, I was ready. I was just scared. I didn't really know. I was confused. I didn't know what to do. But looking back at it now, I know a year I could have done it, but it took me 1.5 years. Okay. So in terms of the self-teaching, well, what I mean by self-teach, the self-taught framework for success, in my opinion, is 2 certs and 2 projects. 1 associate level, 1 project that implements what you learn from that associate level certification, 1 specialty cert, and then that 1 project that implements the knowledge that you got from the specialty cert or builds on a project, your previous project. So for example, in my opinion, it's probably a better idea to get like a wider range of skills. So a little bit more niche than your help desk, but still pretty wide, because entry-level cloud roles, they're not looking for someone who's super advanced in AWS, super advanced in Azure, super advanced in Terraform, but someone who knows a couple of these things enough to be dangerous, right? So for example, if you get like the Azure 204 certification, you go build a project that implements that, then maybe a good certification would be like a Linux related certification, a Terraform related certification, a networking related certification, something a little bit more developer focused and something like that, right? So think of like T-shaped, like you get your certification, your associate level certification, some sort of cloud platform, and your projects are cloud related. So you're building these T-shaped skills, and you have to find some stuff that's complementary to that. Okay. So in terms of certs and projects, in terms of your projects, we'll talk about projects in a little bit. I will also say sharing and networking your knowledge. So using things like Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and GitHub to share your knowledge out there. I highly, highly recommend. You could also do TikTok, Instagram, short form content. I think is great for this as well. Share your knowledge, but don't waste your time here. I'm going to like add an emphasis here. Don't waste too much time here. Don't let it consume you. Don't be fake. Don't be fake. Don't be annoying. I'm going to say don't be annoying. Don't be annoying. Okay. So here's some tips here. In my 6 months cloud study guide, at the very top here, I'm recommending, I factor into the 6 months, I factor in 3 days at the end of each phase for documentation purposes. So create a blog post, LinkedIn post, YouTube video, synthesizing what you've built with your new skills, challenges, resources you've used, etc. Don't try to come off as anything you are not. You are not an expert. I cannot tell you how many times I see these LinkedIn posts of people just trying to come off of things that they are not. It's okay to be at whatever level you are at. That is fine. It's not okay to fake it, because you're going to get caught. You're going to get into these interviewing opportunities where you have no idea what you're doing, no idea what you're talking. And that's not good. Use your own style, your own voice, and authenticity and realness helps land jobs too, 100%. I like to talk about this framework of landing a job where it's 50% your skill set, everything that's in your control, skill set, your resume, your projects that you built, the certification that you have, and then 50% just luck, just opportunity, right place, right time. But I feel like that 50% there, you can improve if you're just a nice person to talk to, if you're a nice person to work with, if you come off nice to, are real, or you are who you are on like social medias, on these networking opportunities, on your initial phone screening, like all of that, right? So keep that stuff in mind. I really do believe that makes an improvement to your chances as well, because ultimately we are people working with people. Okay, keep that in mind. So yeah, back here, sharing your knowledge, but don't waste your time. The majority of your time should be spent building, like enjoying the learning process, enjoying your life, studying, all these types of things. Let social media out the side for when you have some spare time. Okay. Even I, as someone who's now in the space, for a couple of years, have been trying to eliminate social media more and more because I feel like it's just not productive. But for knowledge sharing and for networking, it is productive. So keep that in mind too. Okay. So that's sort of your self-taught framework for success. And then with this, I think you can go, so depending on where you're at actually. So if you have related work experience, you go and build. This probably can take you, instead of 1 year, because you're not going to be working, you're already in your related work experience job. So you're software dev or whatever it is that you're at. It's probably take you like 3 to 6 months to go and build the things that you need. And then you can go straight to applying to your cloud engineer, cloud developer, any role that has cloud in the title. I've divided these types of roles that you're applying to, either cloud exposure roles or cloud jobs that actually have cloud in the role title. Okay. You can probably go straight to here once you have everything that you need to build for success. One thing I wanted to show you is GitHub. When you're sharing your projects in GitHub, you want to have it well documented. Like I can show you, I don't know, like my timestamper project. You can see here I have a little GIF of how it works, prereqs, how to set it up, how to use it, how it works, and contributing. Some of these I even have something like, let's look at this one here. Again, I got the architecture up here, some more information running locally, some more information that I decided is useful. I also have known issues of things I need to fix, things I want to implement, stuff like that. But yeah, don't have an empty README. Use it to give the instructions that people need to implement your project or any additional things that you find useful there. Okay. All right. So back here. Yeah. So cloud exposure, cloud job roles, they're different. So you have your projects, you can probably go straight to applying to your cloud roles. If you are here, like I was in this position where I had my help desk and then I was trying to apply to cloud jobs, but I just consistently got rejected. I took a step back and I saw myself and my skill set. I'm like, okay, maybe there's a step that I can take in between here that's going to better my improvements. So from applying here, so, 1 year help desk, 1 year and a half help desk experience, and certifications, projects, and applying to jobs that had cloud in them, I was getting rejected pretty much 100% of the time. After my year, in my year of I did a sysadmin gig here for about a year. Then I was getting way better. I was probably at like more so 50% rejection, but finally getting different opportunities to interview and actually showcase myself in interviews and things like that. I ultimately ended up not going for cloud opportunities externally, and I got promoted after the year. But before we talk about that, let's talk about what this actually cloud exposure means. Oftentimes at the beginning of, wanting to get into cloud, people will be obsessed about it has to have cloud on the title. But that's why I've added here, stop caring about role titles, care about descriptions. Any roles that give you experience to things like handling virtual machines, scripting, ticketing systems, troubleshooting, Active Directory, 365 programming will give you cloud exposure, especially things like Active Directory and 365. But all these things will give you skill sets that you can later on leverage for cloud jobs. And ultimately, what matters in landing a job is experience. Experience is queen. Experience is up there. Experience is what everyone cares about the most. Everything else is secondary, okay? So keep that in mind. So any roles that give you that exposure, if you have to go do 6 months to a year in that role so you can improve your chances to go and land a cloud role, why not do it? Why not give it a shot? These roles here play pretty well. Like I was making $55K. And I was underpaid, and this was like 5 years ago. So a lot of these sysadmin, network admin, cloud support roles, junior dev roles pay decently, and you're getting the experience you want. But ultimately in your mind, you got to remind yourself, you are not going to do this role forever. This isn't the rest of your life. This is only for the year. This is only your stepping stone. And a lot of times me reminding that self to me would make the role more bearable, would be like, okay, I just got to do my best now, because moving forward, I know I need all of this stuff. So keep that in mind. Okay. So in here, you're also, continuing your self-taught framework for success. If you completed all of this in like that year of your help desk gig, then what you can do is just with the knowledge that you get from this gig here, go and build on the certification project that you built. So this project here, well, now maybe you've picked up some Active Directory or some programming skills. Like, how do you improve those skills? How do you implement those skills into these projects that you've built? And also, since you went and once you completed your first certification, your first project, you went and shared it, you blogged it, you made a video, do a follow-up video. Be like, oh, how I improved my beginner project with a year of experience or something like that. I don't know. Just plenty of opportunities here, right? But continue building that online portfolio, continue building the network, all that kind of stuff. And the best way to do that is through your knowledge, through actually building stuff and sharing, okay? So about a year after that, you're now in the position that these people with related work experience have. You now have your 2 years of experience, and you go and apply to your cloud job, your cloud engineer, cloud developer, DevOps engineer, any role you want with cloud in it. You're in a better position now to go and get it. But as far as landing a role, any role actually, a lot of these prereq roles, so like help desk support, these cloud exposure roles, like sysadmin, things like that, are a lot more lenient. And once you get to your cloud role, you're probably going to get a lot more whiteboarding, a lot more technical knowledge and expertise needing to be showcased. And this is also just a lot more competitive because these pay a lot better, obviously. But interviewing skills and your resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn are important at every step. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this here. So interviewing skills, it's practice. I sound like AI right now. Practice. You shouldn't be going into an interview and thinking about how to answer a question, like a soft skills related question. Like if I asked you, can you talk to me about a situation where you got negative feedback from a colleague? How did you handle it? And how did it improve your work moving forward? You shouldn't be thinking there, sitting down like, I don't know. This one time, like, no. Go and look up a list of soft skill questions and sit down, get the list, and just write down what your answers would be. Obviously, don't make them up, pull them from your experience, but be able to speak to them in a way where you're confident. When you're confident delivering even the most simplest answer, when you deliver it with ease, with finesse, with confidence, that improves how you come off to people who are interviewing you, but that also improves how you feel about how you're doing in an interview. So then when a hard question does come up, you've got your confidence up and you're feeling like, no worries, I got this, I can figure this out, okay? So keep that in mind. It is all about practice. Figure out the questions that are going to be asked to you in terms of like the soft skill questions, but also have a list of questions that you want to ask. There's nothing worse than going into an interview and they ask you, okay, do you have any questions? And you're like, no. That shows that you didn't do your homework, that you didn't look up things about the company. Even if you have to just come up with a bunch of questions that are like not fake, but things that you necessarily don't have too much interest. Just the opportunity to ask someone at a company a question gives you some insider knowledge on, okay, this is how they approach answering questions, or this is how the specific person answers questions, things like that. That is great knowledge for you to know as well, because in an interview, it's not only about you finding a fit. If you're a fit, it's also finding if that place is a fit for you too, right? Another thing to add here is know your projects in and out. You should be able to explain about a project, why you selected a service, what things would you improve, what were your challenges, what was the result, things like that. Like know it in and out. Have great documentation around your projects. If someone asks you, hey, let's talk about a project that you built on the side, be able to talk about it. Hey, let's talk about a project that you built at your previous company, be able to talk about it. In and out, comfortable. Practice. Record yourself. Watch yourself in the mirror. Ask your partner to hang out with you. Ask your best friend, whoever it is. Like practice these interviewing skills, these conversational skills. This is why I always recommend If someone has no technical experience and wants to start from scratch, getting the help desk role, because the amount of customer experience and people skills you develop here because you're talking through issues is phenomenal. I get the comment about, hey, Gwen, you're so great about talking on camera. You're so great at talking to people. Like, how did you figure that out? A lot of that was help desk. A lot of that was when people were so upset about the fact that their computer stopped working and they would just trash me. And I was like, you know what? I understand it. I got to ask you some questions to kind of reverse engineer what's going on. Let's talk it through. A lot of that was from there. Obviously, a lot of it was just practicing recording videos too, but a lot of that came from help desk. Okay. So practice. Okay. Whiteboarding. So I have a couple of videos on whiteboarding. I'm going to actually pull up my channel right now. I have two. I have one on high availability and fault tolerance, and then I have one on elasticity and scalability. So you can actually go to an architecture center, whether that be Azure, AWS, or GCP, and just find a bunch of different concepts that you can reverse engineer and diagram. But remember that the most important part about whiteboarding is not just you being able to write out the concept, but it's your ability to explain and communicate as you go. Because anyone can go and draw a figure on a whiteboard, but that's not whiteboarding, right? It's also about you talking through, explaining your thought process. So keep that in mind. So I think I do a pretty good job with these two videos. I want to do more. If you have any recommendations on topics that you want to see, do them. You can also go to the architecture centers and find architectures and just reverse engineer them. So for example, if someone asks you, oh, here's one of the projects that you've built, can you diagram it out? Can you whiteboard it out for me? And then you walk them through like, okay, yeah. So here's this virtual machine. I've got the web tier on this one. I've got the data tier on here. I've got a load balancer of this type here. I've got some network security groups here, the traffic enters here, whatever, you just talk through the project that you built, right? And this is your opportunity to showcase your technical skill set and your communication skill set, which are two very, very big things when it comes to jobs, because we work with people. We are people working with other people, okay? Okay, last thing on here is the resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn. Resume, tailored, specific, result-driven, and as concise as possible. At this point, if you're going the route that I did, you have 1.5 years in retail or any kind of prior experience before you hit prereqs. Then you got your help desk experience. Then you got your cloud exposure experience. And now you're applying to your cloud roles, right? So you got a good amount of experience that you can add there. Potentially the stuff that you did before might not be super relevant, but if it is relevant, tailor it to the job that you're applying to. I know it's a lot of work to tailor resumes, but ultimately it's the game that we all got to play. It's perhaps a broken system, but we cannot fix the system. I want to emphasize this. We cannot fix the system if we're not in it. We can go and get into the system and make it easier for other people to come in to make it more of a fair opportunity. I understand that, but we can't do that from the inside. We got to do from the outside. We got to do from the inside. So ultimately, this is a game that we have to play. Everything that they want is kind of out there laid out. We got to reverse engineer it and match our skill set, match our resumes, our cover letters, our online presence to that. So let's go. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Let's get in. Let's improve the system, and then, hopefully it becomes better for other people. But resume, tailored, look for the job that you want, and then see what they're asking and align your skills, align your resumes, align how you're explaining your responsibilities to that specific results driven. So instead of saying, for example, in my sysadmin job, I automated a process that took 20 to 30 hours of 20 hours of my colleagues' time of their manual work, automated to a process that runs in less than an hour a week and for under 30 cents a month, ultimately saving the company hours and lots of money, right? So that's sort of the result. There's a lot more people in the world that can understand that statement than me saying something automated a process using Azure functions and several Azure technologies, right? So the result is probably the most important because ultimately you are fulfilling a business need. Yes, you're a cloud engineer, you're a cloud developer, you're a DevOps engineer, but you are fulfilling a business need. So you need to speak in business terms. You need to be able to explain your skill set in business terms. And then you can also add there, okay, so you did the first part results driven, then used Azure services, and you can put a line in there describing what you use. So you have best of both worlds. You have the business need and the technical need covered there. Results driven, very, very important. Okay. And as concise as possible. If you can keep it to a 1-pager, awesome. If you like don't need to add, you know how some people have like soft skills, interest things. I don't think things like that matter. Your education, your experience, and any projects, I think that's all you really need for your resume. Keep it concise because people are just glancing at your resumes. Cover letters. I personally have written cover letters for every single job that I've wanted, but it's really up to you. If in my opinion, if the cover letter has even 1% chance of improving my opportunity to land an interview, I'm going to do it. So that's why I did it. But ultimately, if you don't want to do them, it's up to you. I recommend yes, but I can't tell you what to do. Okay, cool. So that's sort of like the roadmap there, right? The last thing I want to share is sort of what to use to teach yourself or what you need to cover. And I'm going to show you Learn a Cloud. Learn a Cloud is actually this. I tweeted this back June 19, 2021. If I had to learn cloud from scratch in 6 months and gain a junior cloud engineer skill set, I would do 6 weeks Linux and networking basics, 6 weeks learning to code, 8 weeks learning cloud platforms, 4 weeks some DevOps practices, and lots of projects at each phase. This was a viral tweet, and I wanted to follow it up with, actually putting my money where my mouth is and building something that now has become the most popular open source guide to cloud computing. It's free. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but if you don't want to use the guide, that's fine. But I highly recommend just covering these fundamentals here. Bash and networking, programming, cloud platform, DevOps, and cloud security. Again, if you don't want to use the guide to learn that, that's completely fine. Go figure out how you do it, but just cover your backs with having that. Each phase I do have, so it follows this here. It follows how to break down this phase. So how this phase applies, how this technology applies to cloud. How would you break it down? Resources that you can use. The majority of these are free, if not, in my opinion, affordable, less than 50 USD. And stuff that I've either made or recommend because I've used. The majority of stuff that I've used and recommend, I can't create that much content. And then projects that you should build. And there's a knowledge check called things you should be familiar with at the end of this phase. What I recommend is go into the phase, go to the bottom, see if you can do the majority of things here. If you can, move on to the next phase. If you can't, stay on that phase and go through that one. So there's one for Linux. Programming, again, it follows that same structure, cloud, DevOps, cloud security. And then there's more projects if you need more projects here on the left side. Some other study resources. If you need sort of some more mentality around how I study successfully for cloud certifications, there is a video here on that, but there's also a blog post in the description of the video. And it gives you more insight to like, okay, landing your first cloud job, how to find great study material, how to actually study, stuff like that. Okay. This guide is packed with stuff that I've just recollected in my, 9 years working in tech. So again, if you don't want to use it, completely fine. But the guide follows more so a kind of at your leisure type of thing. If you want more of an intense program, go to the 6-month cloud study plan. If you go to the guide and then click study plan on the top left, it'll take you there. But it's also made by gps.com/cloudcamp. Let me zoom in on here, madebygps.com/cloudcamp. If you're interested, I wrote this January 5th. I wanted to start the new year giving people something useful to learn cloud computing. So anyway, do read everything. The protocol kind of gives you the mindset of like how many hours you take, what things should you keep in mind, how to take notes, stuff like that. There's some instructions here. I am going to update this because I want to incorporate the use in the learning of GPT and GitHub Copilot, because I really think that can perhaps not accelerate your learning, but it's going to give you a lot more knowledge and a lot more to learn. It might even be easier for you to learn if you learn how to add it to your skill set. So anyway, it starts with telling you the topic, again, why it matters, and a couple of instructions, one link to resources I recommend, and it breaks it down. 2 weeks. 2 weeks, you spend 10 days doing this, 4 days doing this, 10 days doing this, 4 days doing this, and networking, Python, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's the time breakdown, and there's also project ideas. But more importantly, remember I said here that the sharing and networking your knowledge to build your online portfolio and your presence and to meet more people. Well, I factored that into the 6 months. So I factored it into the end. I factored in 3 days for each choice for documentation purposes. You can use them. What does that mean is after you spend your 2 weeks, you spend 10 days doing this, 4 days doing this, spend 3 days writing about your process. Like talk about create a blog post, LinkedIn post, or YouTube video synthesizing what you've built with your new skills, challenges, resources you use, etc. Don't try to come off as anything you aren't. You're not an expert. Use your own style and voice. Authenticity and realness helps land jobs too. And this is why you should keep a daily study journal so you can reference things to talk or to write about later, okay? So keep that in mind there too. And that's pretty much it. One last thing I want to add is, you get to that point where you're applying and 50% is in your control and 50% is not. Well, sort of. 50% is like the skill set, the projects, the certifications, the prior experience. And the other 50% happens to just be opportunity, luck, right place, right time. Is the hiring manager in a good mood? But I often find that you can improve that last 50% by simply being a great person, simply being someone that people like to talk to, that people like to work with, that likes to help, that gives a good impression online, that gives an authentic impression online, that gives off a good vibe during that initial phone screening. Oftentimes, opportunities simply can come to you because you are a decent person. And yes, it's tech. Yes, it's a lot of technical skill set, but we are people. And people like to work with people. All right? Keep that in mind. That's all I got here. It's a pretty long video. I'm not going to edit it. I'm just going to go straight into YouTube. And everything that I shared here, I will have in the description. And I will share this diagram if this video gets 400 likes. All right. Much luck to you. If you have any other things you want me to cover, let me know. I will see you in the next one.